This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we did our normal preamble. So we're going to take attendance of the board members. So Commissioner Koshi, I see present. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
And Commissioner Lorenzen.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. So we're going to try to speak one person at a time so that our note taker can take the minutes. With that, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Justice for all.
Okay. How's the agenda looking?
I would just like to add one item to the agenda under new business B, if we could. It's a general manager position in response with the city's recommendation under the utility committee letter that we had received from them on October 2nd, 2020.
I'm good with that.
Okay. With that addition, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Consent items A through I.
I'd make a motion that we approve consent items A through I as recommended.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Public forum. Tara, did we receive any comments from the public prior to the meeting?
We did not.
Okay. Anyone on the line wishing to make a public comment? Seeing none, we'll go on to old business. So resolution number 984, the Pachelador, or however you want to say it, annexation. So the public hearing and certification petition.
All right. This resolution is essentially approval that the district is willing to entertain a petition for annexation of the Bachelor properties. They located on 20th Street Southeast and roughly 123rd Ave Southeast. These two properties would be included in the Southeast annexation, interlocal annexation, but we made it clear to the petitioner that these areas would potentially be annexed into the city and the district concurrently through that process, and he'd like us to continue on with this process as well, just in case something happens with either annexation. So the resolution also sets a date for public hearing, which would be at 9 a.m. on the 12th of November, and gives outlines on how we post that publicly. Any questions on that, Commission?
None for me.
Nope, sounds pretty straightforward.
All right.
All right.
I think we
So
would.
with that being said, I guess I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 984, which is a resolution from in front of the Board of Commissioners for the Lake Stevens Sewer District, determining to entertain a petition for annexation of an area contiguous with the Lake Stevens Sewer District and known as the Bachelor annexation, and fixing the date of the 12th of November 2020 at 9 a.m. for a public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. New business, the Pace Engineering odor control proposal for lift station 22.
All right. So we've discussed with the commission previously that the odor control at the new lift station 22 is somewhat wanting. We've received several odor complaints from the neighbors of the lift station. And I asked Pace to take a look at how we can modify the existing odor control implement that we constructed to make it more suitable for the site and the neighborhood's needs. And Pace provided us a scope and fee as well as an alternatives analysis to do that work. So for Pace's portion, it would be an amendment to our on-call contract with them. But Pace is their fee for the scope is $18,639 and even. And that would include, that work would include design, construction management, and permitting help, as well as to provide an electronic or electrical engineer services to make those modifications as well. So yeah, district staff would recommend a amendment to their on-call agreement for that $18,639. And then I'd like to also discuss some of the alternatives that were proposed and what the commissioner's thoughts are on those. But I guess the agreement would be the first bit of business.
What's
So-
the, go ahead.
Well, my question was, okay, so they're asking for just over 18,000 to study why the current design was inadequate. And then in that proposal, they have 3 different options ranging from 39,000 up to 130,000 with varying replacement schedules. So do we have a good idea of why the initial design was so inadequate?
I would say that that blame lies mostly on me. The other 3 lift stations that are pumping into this one, we don't have any odor control at any of the other 3 lift stations, and it hasn't been a problem. So it didn't trigger a whole lot of, I guess, it didn't trigger a big amount of importance in my opinion. So I didn't look too heavily in reviewing the plans for that. And then the original, we had to modify what was originally scoped because we had to upsize the size of the fans and the amount of cubic feet a minute it passes through the wet well. And so we had to modify it, and there was really no solution that would fit. So we had to kind of customize the solution, knowing that it very well could be interim. So yeah.
Now,
Well,
Jonathan, I'm a little disappointed. As a good public servant, you're supposed to cast blame elsewhere instead of taking responsibility. So I want that noted for the record. But
well, I was going to say, yeah, I appreciate you taking responsibility for that, but I also personally would think, I mean, we hired Pace as the expert, so I would have thought maybe I would have hoped they would have included some sort of odor control just from their experience of knowing these things. But neither here nor there. Do you want to move forward with getting a motion for that extension or modification to the agreement prior to discussing the 3 options, or do you want to go into the 3 options?
I think a discussion on approval of the agreement that kind of sets forth getting a study of what the actual odors that we are fighting, and then that would kind of dictate which of the 3 alternatives would be most relevant or would fit better for this piece of the puzzle. So I think the agreement would be the first step, and then we can briefly discuss the pros and cons of each of those alternatives and kind of what results from the study would elicit an investment of each one of those solutions that PACE had proposed.
Well, in my opinion, it's really important for the community in that area that we get this under control and quickly. So, Dan or Kevin, any other comments, questions?
No, I guess the only request I'd have is as we get into this, whatever final solution we come up with, I think it would be good just to kind of have a discussion at some point, either in a workshop or it could be at one of these sessions as an agenda item of, okay, if we had full clairvoyance of what the odor was going to be, how much rework was really impacted, or would have this, and what portion would have just been incremental cost anyway if we had this from the get-go? I think that would be, it's something a number that I would like to understand and a little more of the nuances around that. But as far as fixing the problem, I have no issue going forward.
Okay, and yeah, I had planned on fixing or preparing kind of an after action review of each of our capital projects that were complete this year to discuss some of the shortcomings, what we can learn from each one of the projects, and come up with a game plan for future projects from that.
Yeah, that's great, and it's good. That's good hygiene, just on anything. Stuff always comes up, just how it is. So I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, and I would follow along with those sentiments that obviously we have to control the odor coming out of the lift station itself. PACE has done a great job in developing that and seeing the project through. I mean, I appreciate all the work they put behind it. I think that, we'll obviously see more to come with the three options. Hopefully it is the least of the three, because it can get expensive, but we need to do it right. And so I understand that. I think with that being said, I would make a motion that we move forward with PACE Engineering on the proposal for odor control. And if I heard it correctly, it's $18,639 for this scope of work with 0 cents, correct?
Correct.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Jonathan, do you want to do the three options now or do it as part of that next meeting?
I can briefly describe each of the three proposals right now, and with the assumption that they could change in the future depending on what we get from the odor analysis. If the commission wants to do that, or we can hold off until we know, and then I can give you definitive answers on alternatives.
Why don't you go ahead and do it briefly, just so that we get in our heads in the record what kind of range we're looking at.
Okay. All right. So the first proposal is called the ECS V1 carbon absorber system. And it's essentially just a vessel that holds activated carbon. And there's several different types of activated carbon with different surface areas and cost, depending on what type of odor and what the concentration of that odor is. That the cost for that project or that solution is roughly $39,000. And there's only a little bit of modification to the current site that needs to be done. It's essentially piping from our current exhaust piping to the new vessel. The second is the Seneco Peacemaker air scrubber. The cost of that one is a rough order of magnitude of $115,000. And this one uses two media compartments. One that's a proprietary blend of polymeric amine that is specially designed to scrub H2S or hydrogen sulfide odor. And then it has a secondary compartment that has carbon that will get most of your mercaptan or anything other than hydrogen sulfide odors out of the air. And the third option is Odorox, which is an ozone generator that is used to oxidize H2S or hydrogen sulfide in the vessel, and then in theory it would exhaust air or cleaner air. That rough order of magnitude cost on that is about $130,000. However, there's and with that option, there's no or very few consumable parts. You aren't replacing media every year or every 3 years. But I don't know if that cost to be offset by power consumption, because it creates a whole lot of power consumption. And then by reducing the airflow, we would have to reduce the airflow through the wet well, and would not get us the current 12 air exchanges through that wet well that we have. So I think it's an interesting option, that one, but I don't know if it really meets our expectation on that one. So but again, yeah, we don't know if it is just hydrogen sulfide odor that we're contending with, or if it is other constituents that ozone wouldn't be the proper solution to fight.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, anything further on that one?
No, other than I look forward to hearing what the final recommendation will be once it does come forward. I know that, there are a lot of things that go into building these pump stations, and sometimes things do change. When you make one change, it affects another area. So it is something that does happen, and so hopefully we can get it fixed at the best rate for the ratepayers and move on and deal with other issues that we are working with in the community.
No, I'm good. I just added activated carbon to my prayer list to be the solution, so got that down.
Perfect. All right, new business B, the GM position and the city recommendation response. I'm gonna step away from this one and let you two go ahead.
Thank you. Well, the reason I wanted to add this thing is I know that the Board of Commissioners and the Utility Committee with the city, we did meet this last month, and have some discussion in regards to the direction that the sewer district is moving, but wanted to get some feedback, and we had asked the city to be able to provide us, any follow-up information and feedback from the Utility Committee, which they did, which I appreciate that they got that to us in a very timely manner. It really helps. Obviously, there's decisions before the Board of Commissioners that we'd like to make, and I mean, reading the letter and their proposals and taking their input, I appreciate the time and effort that they had put through it. There was 2 plans that they had put forward for us to take a look at and kind of see how we felt about it, if there's things that could work it. I think there is some benefits as we, as an organization, move in the future in regards to looking at ILA type of work. Definitely, I'd never discount any of that, because I think that is something that, as an elected commissioner, I have a duty to the citizens, and these citizens are also within the incorporated city, at least, a majority of them. So we have to look at everything that comes to play. So I want to make that known that, yeah, these recommendations, we truly appreciate hearing from them.
Yeah, I guess, Dan, maybe, since this kind of centers on the conversation with the Utility Committee last time, specific to our stated direction we wanted to discuss with the city and the Utility Committee around Mariah being an interim GM. Do you want to maybe take a moment, just kind of talk about how that idea came about, or just a little more color around that, just towards the history for the benefit of public record, if nothing else?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it is something. So, I mean, I've been with the district this time around a couple of years. Previously, I served almost 2 years on the Board of Commission. One thing that I always look at is it was very, very apparent, as an organization, we tend to take a very conservative approach and take a look at the type of people that work for the organization and always want to look internally. When the announcement came about that our general manager, Tanya, was going to retire, it was a shock to me. I mean, I'd not heard any of this. I think I was probably one of the last people to know about it, but, it is part of a process. And for me, I wanted to really look at how do we move forward as an organization, being very efficient with the monies that we have and not expending dollars that need to be spent. I thought about that for quite a while, and I'm the one that brought it to the general manager. I had a conversation with Tanya, I think it was a few days before, when she told me, and I thought about it for a couple, and I kind of looked at, like, how can we get, the best bang for our buck is what I'm really looking at. And so I contacted Tanya the following couple days after that and said, hey, do you feel that the organization would move forward easy, and would Commissioner Lowe be willing to step into the position as an interim general manager? She has a great background. She understands it. She's very well educated in her respects of knowing and what she does for her current position. So this would be a very, very easy move for her if she would be willing, because I looked at it as trying to get the least amount of disruption without spending a lot of money as an organization. I mean, I've seen, and I have been a part of, where we have, when I worked as part of city government, when we've looked for department heads, you spend a lot of money, and really you're not, it's, I mean, you hate to say it, but it's a crapshoot sometimes. You're just kind of throwing and hoping you did pick the best one. This kind of goes back to working with Tanya. I think she had probably one of the longest periods of time where it was kind of like getting to understand, can she do the job, before it was finally offered to her. And it's almost the same way when I'm looking with Commissioner Lowe. She has taken the position as a board president and just ran with it and done a lot of background work. She is fully involved, a lot more than I think previous presidents on different board of commissioners have taken that. So it was something that I really looked, that you got to tap good people when you find them. And we're very fortunate to find somebody internally that would be willing to do that. So I think that she would do an excellent job.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess I had shared with the utility committee, my approach, whether it was Mariah or another candidate, when we talk about really leaders of leaders, what I've found most successful for me in the corporate world is I rotate rotate harder towards the character, the proven background, the relationship, much more towards those, I guess, softer skills than more of a competency test, or something that I would do in a more that I consider in a more junior position, or a more technical related position that has a more narrow defined skill set. So when this came back to me, looking at it through the lens of how I hire second line leaders, it balance. There's consistency, maybe from a different perspective than Dan, but consistency with kind of the thought process. I guess one other observation that I have is this will be this will be our fourth general manager in less than 8 years. So not that I wish Mariah or anybody else that's in the GM's spot anything less than a multi-year journey, but our track record has shown that we've had multiple individuals in that position over the past 8 years. And as I look at kind of the unification agreement specifically, as we near, a decade out, as 12 years left on the agreement as written, as we look farther out, as that time narrows, and I think we should schedule some additional time to go through our 10 points in our operating agreement, all of that, because this is a key point in that. But as that time narrows down to less than a decade, let's say, or significantly less than a decade, I think there's that has relevance to it. And so in this case, it's over a dozen years out. We've had four GMs within 8 years. It's a betting person would say that a dozen years from now, if you look at past history as an indication of future results, Mariah probably won't be in that seat. There will be another discussion if, again, no guarantees that's the case. I'm not wishing that on anybody, but that, given our stated direction to the utility committee. So I think that's important. One other thing, and again, it echoes Dan's comments about serious consideration. I mean, I've probably read the city's recommendation, the letter of October 2nd, half a dozen times. We've met as a commission and have gone through it as well. A lot of time and thought around this. I've had a chance to have some short text communication with both Councilmember Petershagen and Mayor Gailey since it was sent. I get one of the things that does come up in the letter that I think is worth to address is, in my corporate life, it's very common to have a board member fill in as CEO or even take over a CEO role. That's quite common. I know that there's examples in the local government world where that's the same as well. And so somewhere I have it noted in terms of making sure we look at the legality of appointing and so forth. And I think it's fairly common and fairly understood from a statutory standpoint. But I guess, Brad, is there anything that we're discussing here that would maybe draw any additional concern just from a legal standpoint, since it was mentioned in the recommendation letter from the city?
There's no obligation on the part of the commission to go through an RFQ process or some sort of public solicitation to appoint the general manager. I mean, you can look at other jurisdictions. I mean, you can look to Dan's selection as chief of police at the the city of Lake Stevens. He was hired internally. You can look around other jurisdictions in the state where they routinely hire internally. There's no obligation. You simply have to exercise your best judgment to fill the position with what you believe is someone that can perform according to the standards that you expect somebody to be able to perform. And you can also look around and see examples of where other jurisdictions have done requests for qualifications, hired headhunters and spent considerable sums of money and had results that have been, not the results that they have desired. The city of Mill Creek went through a circumstance like that not too long ago that was was the subject of some articles in the paper. So it's the commission exercising its best judgment on filling the position with someone that they believe is appropriate to perform the job. And in my recollection, actually, in the district's recent history, is prior to Tanya, Michael, I believe, was the result of a search, and unfortunately, he didn't last very long. He lasted, I think it was 3 or 4 years, but it was the results of I think a fairly expensive search, and he decided that he wanted to go to a different public employer. So you get mixed results based on circumstances that have not necessarily it doesn't necessarily have to do with the performance of the individual, but a lot of times hiring based upon someone who is used to the culture of the sewer district and understands how things have developed and performed well can substantially increase the probability that individual will continue that performance and assure continuity and not only in the performance but also their longevity. So enough rambling, but the short answer is no. You don't have to go through a particular process.
I appreciate that. And certainly the rate peg value of the question is fundamental to what we ask ourselves at each aspect of the district, and certainly not wanting to jeopardize any efficiencies gained that we've worked hard to achieve in terms of disruption around the culture and the flow and the continuity with external also weighs heavy on the decision. Dan, anything else that you want to kind of share or questions?
I just want to kind of, a couple points that listening to yourself and legal talk. A prime example of this occurring in this fashion is City of Mill Creek. I know a city council member had just stepped down from his position because he was appointed to be the director of their public works. So it's nothing out of the ordinary. I see it in county government where county council persons have stepped away from their position to join the current exec's office to manage some of the programs going on in county government. So this isn't something that is just put together haphazardly. I kind of looked at it, and I look at the unification agreement and how it plays into this. And as you kind of mentioned, I know there's 12 years, just a little over 12 years before this final unification will come together. And part of it, like you said, is taking a look at is the decision we make today going to outlast the agreement? I want to be wrong, but I know the reality a lot of times with individuals that end up taking the leads in organizations, excuse me, they generally don't make it. Average is probably 3 to 5 years. That's generally how a lot of a lot of them worked before they moved to a different role somewhere else. So our history has shown, I mean, we were very fortunate, I guess, in the past where we had Darwin Smith as a commissioner, or not a commissioner, as a general manager for many, many years under a board. But in this day and age, that's not the norm. And so it is something that, like I said, I weigh the recommendations that the city had put forward. It was something we discussed with them at our last utility meeting. And so I think given that, I mean, the Board of Commissioners obviously have the ability to finally move in a direction after taking all the information in. So that's where I kind of stand with it.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I guess anybody else on the district side, anything else, Brad, you want to share, or Tanya, that you may want to share at this point?
So for me, when Dan had recommended Mariah, my personal feeling was that it would be a really nice transition. Mariah understands the district. She understands all the conversations that we've had prior to, before I retire. And having that knowledge and that baseline is really invaluable versus bringing someone brand new in. An example, Michael would be a great example of bringing somebody in who really just couldn't wrap his head around what was happening. And Jonathan and I just spent so much time trying to get him to, understand the relationship that we have with this interlocal agreement, and that we're working as partners to, get things done that need to be done. Whereas Mariah brings that already to the table. And I am here for the Lake Stevens Sewer District, for Mariah. Even after I retire, I'm still going to be around to be able to help her with any kind of questions she may have or whatever. I just think it's a common sense, makes sense, transition, because she's got it. And, people can argue all the time that she doesn't, always know everything. Well, neither do I, but that's why you hire the quality people that you hire. Jonathan doesn't know my job. I don't know Jonathan's job, but I know that Jonathan's going to keep me informed and he's going to tell me how to do stuff. You hire good people to work with you. You don't need to know everything. And Mariah's got that same kind of mindset. She knows that she's got the people that are there with her who are going to tell her what she, needs to know and help make the decisions that need to be made. You don't have to know everything. You just hire the talent and the skill set. And then you've got your team right there.
Jonathan, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think a commissioner is essentially an executive of the district. So, and the general manager is a largely executive position. So I think it is essentially a lateral move, just more time commitment. And general manager, similar to city administrator, like I'm sure Gene can attest to, is a largely political position, and the constituents elected Mariah at a political position. So I don't think there's much difference from having her as a board member or a general manager. It's just the time constraint. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Kevin, this is Brad. Can I just add one comment? John just made an interesting point, and that is, you commissioners are a little bit different from a lot of the other legislative type of elected individuals, because you are so hands-on in terms of your role as elected individuals. The knowledge that you have with respect to the sewer district business is significantly more in depth, in my opinion. And I've been involved in a lot of municipal organizations over my career. Um, and so the transition for Mariah from the role of commissioner to general manager is significantly different than the transition of, say, in my opinion, someone who's say, a city council member to a city administrator, or a county council member to a county executive. It's an entirely different transition, and in particular because the sewer district is a special purpose district, so the breadth of the work isn't a general purpose government. So the focus of the district is more narrow, and the knowledge that you as commissioners are focused on is not as broad and is more in depth. So I think that it really is a fairly natural transition to make, and I think that's a good point that John made.
Dan, so how do you want to handle next steps with this? Good dialogue, a lot of consideration, a lot of good points made.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I look at is I've reviewed the letter, obviously outlining from the city's position. There are a couple things. They have a couple succession plans that they had spoken about, 1 and 2, 1 being general manager and human resources, 2 just being an ILA agreement with them. I think that looking at the possibility of ILA stuff in the future, maybe looking at the human resource aspect of it could be a good topic at the next utility meeting that we have coming up on the 27th of this month. At this point, I mean, I'm inclined to really, I would like to make a motion, to move for an offer of employment contract, work with have our executive staff, the general manager, assistant general manager, work with legal to move forward in a contract that could come back to the Board of Commissioners for a final approval.
I'd second that. So I think
So as I understand, the motion would be to draft a contract of employment for interim general manager with Mariah Lowe.
Yes, that would be correct. Working through the staff and legal, since I don't want to have a conflict of Open Public Meeting Acts. If Ms. Lowe is currently a commissioner, we would have some contractual stuff that needs to just be worked through legal.
Correct. Okay. Gotcha.
And then I would like to, I'd like to draw this to conclusion one way or the other. So I think we have, and again, all about ratepayer value. I think the ratepayers are paying us to be on a meeting on Tuesday, the WASWAD meeting. I'd like to propose that we find a time, maybe just prior to that, to finalize any discussion, any motions, and potentially take action. There's got to be dialogue and mutual agreement, and there's some steps here to go through between here and then. But I'd like to close fairly quickly if that would work with Tanya and Brad's schedule, since you're going to be probably doing most of the lifting on contract and sharing and doing the shuttle diplomacy between the commissioners and all that.
If Commissioner Lowe is available for some discussion, it certainly will work for me.
You want to do it on the 13th, say 6:30? Is that okay? Does that work? 6:30 p.m.?
Yeah, that works for me. I mean, we already have a meeting scheduled at 7, so yeah, so we can be efficient and knock 2 things out with one meeting, or 2 separate meetings of one day, so the ratepayers aren't paying twice.
Yeah, that works for me. I can make that work.
So
okay.
Since that, I have a motion on the table. I assume you seconded that, Kevin?
I second the motion. We had some discussion.
Okay, well, I'll call for a vote. So all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstained.
Okay. So the motion has moved forward, and we'll look forward to hearing from legal and the general with any negotiation process that may go on, and look forward to a meeting on the 13th at 6:30.
Great. Thank you. Okay, back to the agenda. So we have the general manager's report.
I don't really have anything to report. The parking lot is paved and we are now able to park in it. So hopefully you can come by. It's a little bit tighter, but it's going to be nice when it's all done. But I don't really have anything else to report.
Assistant general manager.
Right. So year to date, we've collected 242.42 connection fees, and we've issued 338 permits. This week and last week, Angeline has been working with the city to modify our infill side sewer permit application to include the city in review before we issue those permits. We've had a couple situations where the district's issued a permit and the applicant has dug through a wetland or disturbed wetlands. And through that process, the city and the district, we agreed that the process for approving those permits should include city reviews, since they're the statutory authority having jurisdiction over wetlands as well as building permits. So we've modified our sewer permit application to include the city for review. District will not approve any side sewer permits unless the city authorizes the approval. And we're currently working through internal workflows to ensure that city review as well as district sending our reviews over to the city can still happen relatively quickly. Right now we have a almost same day turnaround on permit approvals. So the city's committed to not extending that out past 10 days. The 7 to 10 day review and approval should be within the scope. But Angeline's done a great job in pushing that forward with city staff. The parking lot, again, like Tanya was saying, is paved. The next step is striping, which will happen next Wednesday. And then landscaping will be happening intermittently between now and then. But the contractor's done a great job staying on schedule, actually a bit ahead of schedule. So yeah, we're really happy with them. Grace Lane overlay, we had a pre-construction meeting on site with city staff as well as our staff. That should be going underway relatively quickly. Weather permit. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Treatment plant update, Jim.
Yeah, we're doing okay down here. Our flows are about 2.3. We are still prepping for the wet weather that's coming. We did run a performance test on our MBR and our results were excellent. So we feel pretty confident that we're doing what we're supposed to do in order to prepare for this winter.
Perfect. Thank you. City report, Gene.
Thanks, Mariah. Good to see everyone. I've got a big list, so I'll start cruising through it. Mill Spur, the new Festival Street, we've pretty well finalized the plans on that. I know that Jonathan has been part of that review. Official letters have gone out to the library, Historical Society, and the Row Club that they will need to be moved by, I think it's May 30th of next plan to move forward because we'd like to be under construction June of 21. So that's going on there. We've moved forward with the Riley Group on doing the borings at the old treatment plant site, and I believe they're going to work with Tanya to schedule those. So if you haven't heard from them yet, Tanya, they will be getting a hold of you. The decant facility is moving along nicely and is on schedule. The 20th Street road widening, the phase 1 portion is all but complete. There's some striping and some driveway approaches that need to be done, and that will be complete. The Bat Lane portion, which is the second phase, is under construction. Frontier Heights, it got hydroseeded on Sunday, and that's Frontier Heights Park. Hydroseed on Sunday. The parking lot still needs to be finished up, and the street light posts need to go up. And we did have some Boy Scouts here volunteering their time last weekend and the weekend prior, staining all those light poles. That was a really good project for the Boy Scouts. We appreciate them. And then North Cove Park Phase 2 is under construction, and Eric will be reaching out to Jonathan or Tanya for a capping permit. There's sewer that needs to be connected to the new restroom facility that's going to be built. So he'll be getting a hold of you in the next day or two to talk about that and get an application filled out. And that's it.
Thanks. Okay, commissioners report.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. I did stop by the district office the other day to sign vouchers review, and it looks awesome. The company did excellent job in putting that together. I even drove through the new part to see what it felt like. You know, it's kind of nice. Hopefully we're going to make it a one-way where you kind of come in where we normally do the old way and work our way out. That seems to flow pretty well, and you know, be kind of nice. I don't know if we plan on putting, I know that we had talked about a monument sign eventually towards the front of the parking lot, kind of identifying the organization a little bit more than just a plywood sign. But yeah, no, it looks awesome. They did an incredible job, and they were very, very timely. You know, just, I guess after, unfortunately, having the delays with the construction, seeing this go together in a matter of weeks instead of months really felt good. And it's nice to see the city's projects moving along so swiftly. The 20th Street Southeast project, it does look very nice. It is wide. It's probably going to be a freeway, but I'm sure that they have plans in place to kind of deal with that once it comes to final paint or striping and everything. So other than that, thank you everybody for the hard work. We really appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I felt like you were trying to start, so go ahead.
No. I was going to go for the prompt. I try to stay in my lane. But the one thing I had was in regards to the Civic Center, and you know, I know it's still early stages, and I know I believe there's been a series of meetings set up between the staffs and everything. I just want to make sure that from the district's point of view, we're very clear on you know, our approach and our commitment around that project. And I think it would be, I'm not sure what form it would be most appropriate, whether it be a letter from the commissioners or a letter from the GM or a resolution or what have you. But what I would like to do is maybe have staff draft up whatever the words would be. We can decide what to put it in, but be very clear on what the district's financial commitments are around that. And in my mind, and we can maybe get this drafted and then we can debate it if there's a difference of opinions, or we can hash it out here, and now it doesn't matter to me. But in my mind, it is, we have a certain amount of run rate OPEX. And again, this all gets back to rate pair value. What's the rate pair value? What's the RPV? Today, we have a certain amount of run rate OPEX around our existing facility on Vernon Road. And that run rate OPEX would certainly be available to contribute for a like amount of square footage and facility in whatever new facility happens. If there's some synergies around common space and stuff, well, then maybe it's a little less. But It's that's the pool of money that is available as far as OpEx goes. And then as far as the existing, in my, again, one commissioner's opinion, in the value of the building, let's say it's, you know, whatever, 2.5, 3 million, whatever its value is, that is a capital asset. And capital assets, in my view, and I haven't asked anybody to look up what the statutory requirements or what Title 57 requirements are or anything else, but in my purview, capital dollars stay with capital projects. So when and if that we're able to sell the Vernon Business Center, those dollars are going to be plowed right back into the capital plan that both the district and city work on for doing sewer infrastructure. That retains the ratepayer value in terms of what's been invested in the districts, in my mind. And I think it's just really important for us to be clear about, you know, what the district's financial intent is around the civic center, so that so the city can do their planning. There's no ambiguity. There's no need to, you know, as things shift left and right, we have a North Star that we can, you know, we all can come back to and have no misunderstandings about. So, so if that's something, Tanya, you could take up and maybe frame that up, and then whatever's the most appropriate way. Maybe it's just a simple email, but I want to make sure that that's clear, so there's we avoid any potential misunderstandings. Other than that,
Absolutely.
okay, good. And Dan and Mariah, you'd be welcome to comment or not, or on that thought.
No, I think that's a really good approach, just to make it real clear. It's something we've done in the past, you know, with the decamp facility, put bookends on what we're willing to do. We've done it with, you know, the Costco project and things like that. So I think it just makes the relationship between the two entities better when we're very clear on what the expectations are for that type of endeavor. So that would be great. I have nothing additional to add, just a thank you to all the staff and all that. I do see a hand up. Patrick, would you like to comment?
Just a closing comment that assuming the board commissioners takes action on the 13th, Mariah does have an executed employment contract. That's going to create a vacancy on the commissioners board. And I assume that there is a plan in place to get another commissioner appointed for the balance of Mariah's term.
Yes, so legally we have 90 days to fill a vacancy before it would then go to the county for a decision. So if and when that happens, I obviously would vacate my seat, and then we would put out a clear plan of how we're going to accept applications or whatnot. And just like happened with my appointment, Dan's appointment, any in the past, we would do interviews, or the commissioners would do interviews, and then make the best decision.
Thank you. That's clear.
All right. With that, any executive session? I was thinking not, but
I do not have any.
okay. With that, we can conclude. So thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.